I think what we're seeing from our unique viewpoint is, the federal government approaching this very cautiously and not wanting to overregulate at this point. So I think we've heard of some of the repercussions coming out of Europe from the EU AI Act being anti-innovation, and being really, really not necessarily anti-vendor, but not as friendly for vendors wanting to go do business in Europe. And so I think, President Trump and his administration, and I would say actually Congress alike, they all want the United States to be the powerhouse of AI going into the future. They want us as a country to lead and to be the center for AI dominance. And so that's the type of mindset that we're looking at from the federal government and how they're approaching this. And so I think as a result, what we're going to see is, not a lot of regulation coming out around AI. And I think that makes, a good bit of sense at this point because it's so nascent. It's changing every day. There's a lot of new things that are coming out. And so you think about things like Section 1557 of the Affordable Care Act that go into effect tomorrow. I think we're going to see just non-enforcement of it at this point from everything that we're hearing. Yes, it's on the books. It's important to make sure algorithms do not discriminate and don't have bias and that they're fair. But at the same time, from what we've been hearing from our congresswomen and women there on the Hill, the desire to regulate in terms of bias, fairness, safety just isn't quite there yet because the technology is still pretty nascent. So. What I will say though,
started before the feds got in the game, so you expect to see the states filling in the gap. Looks like they are in a few jurisdictions.
yeah, I do think so. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of state action. There already has been. I think we were just talking before this call. There's been close to 800 bills last year, going on 900 this year, which is interesting. Most of those pending. But I think the states that we're paying really close attention to because of the impact, especially in the healthcare space, is one, California. So there's a California bill, California AB 2013, called Transparency in Generative AI Solutions, which has really caught our interest because it ties closely to the work that we're doing around transparency. But it requires developers of generative AI to disclose a lot about the data that they're using to inform their solution. So who's the owner of the data? Describe the data set, whether the data sets contain personal information, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's going to be really interesting for providers, especially in the healthcare space that are going and selling into California that have to disclose that. And what are they going to do about the other states? I think California is one of those states that a lot of states follow suit with. And so we'll see if that level of transparency continues to proliferate. Under that specific bill, they're actually required to disclose that publicly. And so whether that's on their website, whether that's partnering with CHI and the National Registry to be able to do it, I think it'll be interesting. The other one that we're really paying close attention to that goes into effect in 2026, just as well as California does, is the Colorado AI Act. And in that AI Act, it calls for impact assessments, but it really doesn't define what an impact assessment means.
Right.
And so what we're relying on right now is International Standard 42001 that actually defines an impact assessment as one, bias testing. So testing, performance by demographic, cross comparison against your local population, and then also risk assessment. And so within CHI, we're working on a risk assessment that people can use that's informative of not only FDA and INDRF that's out there today, but that informs also the generative AI, the non-clinical solutions that are out there that don't have a risk framework today. That's interesting. And then you have Texas as well, that in their Responsible AI Governance Act, which actually just got peeled back, I think over the last couple of days. Started out as a 900-page bill, quickly going, to 30 or so, and that bill is really going along the lines of preventing algorithmic discrimination. I'm looking at what levels of unacceptable risks are, maybe including a private right to action, which is interesting on the legal front, and then also having some sort of detailed record sets for generative AI development, or for developers rather. So I think it's really interesting. There's still a lot to be had from the state level, and and we'll see. And so, if you're a developer, if you live in one of those states, I think it's going to be really interesting to see, one, how developers comply with it, and then two, how you as a healthcare delivery organization looks at looks at your vendors in your due diligence process to figure out what level of transparency are they providing, et cetera, et cetera. So.